blur mine in the background.
But it makes me feel like the blurred backgrounds look very like Snoop Dogg, his
How do you
TV
get
show.
that setting? I don't have that setting still. Where do you have it?
Right click your image in the corner.
Okay. I get turn video off or mute microphone.
Oh,
really?
You don't get unblur my background?
No.
Huh.
Huh.
So we're already live.
Weird. Craziness. I don't know why that doesn't happen to me. Well, guys,
amazing.
your shit is fancy and mine is antique.
Look at me.
That's what's
Look at
going
me
on.
right here. And then
Welcome to the Flawedcast.
welcome. Greetings and salutations.
You know what? I had a thought.
Greetings.
Oh yeah, we need an intro song. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh. I keep forgetting that's a task of mine. I feel like
I thought you started.
No. It's I feel like questions are good. We all got questions. Welcome to the answer show.
The answer
we
show.
We all got curiosities. You and me and my bros gonna answer those.
Whoa.
Oh, that was nice.
You know, everybody got some questions. Welcome to the answer show.
The answer show. We became the answer show so suddenly. I like it. And I would encourage the nation to submit their questions in the comment section. You know, like how does Bjorn, stay so youthful looking? This kind of thing.
Yeah, get out of town with that one.
I actually have the first question from our first listener, and this is really, I gotta say, this is confounding. This is a tough one. We're gonna have to.
I hope
solve.
we're able to answer it on the question show. I mean,
we have
answer show guy.
We have we have some sort of an idea of what to call the Flawedcast Nation, the Flawedcast listeners.
I always like Flawedcast Nation.
Yeah. What's that idea?
Right. Well, I mean, like that kind of that we have some terms, right? We've bandied around some things. However, this listener asks, what is the term for the Flawedcast trio?
The staff.
Employees. The flawed staff.
Yeah, flawed staff. It's like Flagstaff. Arizona. I gotta adjust my headphones so I can hear myself and you guys. It's very complicated.
I like it. It's a good.
The flawed staff. I like that. So we got Flawedcast Nation, brought to you by the flawed staff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
it's better than like the most flawed or
flawedest.
The flawedest.
That's true. Although in a weird way, doing that would be like we're the least perfect of the nation, and therefore we represent it as the host, which has something to it.
I like the flawed staff because
everybody sins on you shit.
I love your Jedi move, Rob, of instantly placing us in middle management with no authority, no responsibility.
Right.
We're just here doing our jobs, folks.
We
know you all need us to do our jobs, and we're going to do our best at it. That's the best we got.
True. And it led me to thinking of just a brief story. This morning, I was walking with the child and the dog. So I got a stroller and a dog.
Wait, which child and which dog? Yours, both?
Both. Yeah. Okay. And I'm walking down the streets of Federal Way. This is the town I live in. It's very, there's a lot of traffic in the morning. People go into the big city to go to work and stuff. And it's getting close to an election. So there are many signs for city council and this and that. And we're walking down a pretty busy street. And I get to a corner and I'm about to cross. And as I'm approaching, I see a cluster of signs. And one of them just says Republicans in big letters. And then it says, we must unite, like hashtag we must unite.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I don't know even what it means or why, but the sign was such, it was like a big rectangle, or not that big, but regular campaign sign rectangle on a little metal, like two little metal posts that go in under it. So kind of like a tabletop shape. Okay. And I don't know what came over me, but pushing my stroller, walking my dog, I just did this like karate kick thing to the sign right in front of all the traffic. It goes flying. And then I pressed the crosswalk button and I crossed the street. And lo and behold, there's another one right there. And I did it again. I'm not saying it was a noble or good or bad move necessarily, but I just thought it must have been really funny to like the passing by cars. They see like a dad, a stroller, a dog, and then just like nonchalant walks up to the sign, just kicks it as if it's totally normal, flies into the air, crosses the street like, minding my own business, does it again. So
love that. I really love that.
That's what happened this morning, and I'm just owning it.
I just want to say, I think I have an idea of what they mean by that message.
Yeah, what? I do too. Yeah.
Yeah, the Republicans unite. I think what they mean, they need to make one giant mega republic.
Oh my God. Is that not already Trump?
I think what they mean is like all the Republicans get together and make
form
this
like
Franken Republican.
Yeah.
That's just bigger than everybody. Like just if all of us just stack on.
It's like it's finally time.
Right.
It's we must now congeal into the massive blob of GOP nest that we've been looking for.
As long as the supremacists don't be the head.
Well, the Republicans could care less.
I feel like Trump is the tiny left hand.
Right. I mean, this is just what I imagined when you said that, Rob.
I liked it.
Sign. I'm like, Republicans unite, and they all just like join into limbs on a transformer.
Okay, keep that image. Oh, okay. There's one. It's two left of that one. It's all lime green, and it's a bunch of construction vehicles. Do you see it?
Yes.
It says Takara Transformers Unite.
Oh wait. There it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Here.
Yes.
Okay.
So just a quick anecdote about that. Whether it was that exact thing or the equivalent of it from 1986. At one point, my mother, I don't know what she was trying to train me to do as a youngster, but when I did something really good, I got a little transformer construction vehicle.
Nice.
And I did not have any idea that all the construction vehicles turned into a massive transformer. And so by the time I finally got the last one, like I did whatever good thing earned me that one, I didn't have the first one anymore. So I never got to build the giant Republican transformer.
If only it would have changed so much of your trajectory, Rob.
I know. I might have been a Republican today if that had happened.
Yeah, almost certainly.
Would have been better for them.
You would have been having champagne with Gordon Sondland downtown at one of his hotels.
I know. Just cheers, Gordy.
Gordy.
Yeah, Bill Taylor. He seems like he's not really even part of the whole congealed Republican thing anymore.
No, the gelling is starting to slip. There's a new.
Wait, is Bill Taylor the Tuesday testimonial?
Yeah, and I only had to bring it up because his name's fucking Bill Taylor. It's like John Doe. You know what I mean? Like,
no, it's absolutely John Doe. Because they say he looks like John Doe too.
It's two white first names.
It's like it's almost like they should have just said Republican neighbor is coming in to testify. Like it's just it's just like the most meaningless name ever. Bill Taylor.
If the Republican
area man.
Area man.
What part of the Transformer body would Bill Taylor be?
I think
the Republican megalith.
He'd be like the heart or something. I don't know.
No, he'd be like the freaking appendix, like quite disposable.
I feel like obviously Trump is the asshole. Trump is the
anus. There's no question about
the
that.
Transformer body.
Good statement. Yeah.
Yeah, and from there the poop flows.
Yeah, I mean, so I feel like, and then there's like what's the organ that you can literally just cut out at birth? You don't need it. Like, is it your
the appendix? No.
Is it the appendix?
I thought that was the appendix.
Your body just does it like an extra.
Tonsils, appendix. Fuck them.
Yeah. Mike Pence.
Yeah.
Is the appendix. Absolutely right about that.
I'm not convinced that's actually a human. I don't know if it's a robot or an alien, but there's something very, very peculiar about that thing. And I don't want to say that guy because I just am not sure it qualifies. It's like, it looks like a weird, like in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, that one boss, like the bad guy, and there's like a little brain in its stomach.
Yeah.
It's like that's Mike Pence. Right? Like if you like unbuttoned his shirt and looked at the torso, there'd be like a teeny little alien in there just driving.
He seems like some sort of celestial being that's descended from another realm, wearing like what that group, that being thought a normal person would look like.
Yeah.
And so they like genetically created a Mike Pence and put him in place.
All right. This is what it looks like.
This works, right?
Have you seen?
This is passable.
He's a Republican appendix dressed in a politician suit.
Yeah, there it is.
Krang.
Yeah, Krang. There was a Simpsons Treehouse of Horrors episode one time, I think it was, where they had the two aliens. I think one of their names might have been Krang too. They were like the two aliens. They make a lot of cameos in the Simpsons, but it was during the Clinton-Dole campaign, and basically they'd possessed Clinton and Dole to the point that there was like some rally or something, and one of them was like, abortion, like someone's like, abortion's for everyone, and people start booing, or like some people cheer and some people boo, and like one way or another they end up with like, abortion's for some, small American flags for others, and all of a sudden everybody it's kind of like that's Mike Pence, you know what I mean? Just like, okay, yeah.
What is Rush Limbaugh?
Is he an organ?
He was.
I think he's the intestines. He's the intestines.
Is he a skin tag?
No, he's the intestines. He pumps the shit straight to the ass.
Right. Totally. He's like, he's one of them.
And Hannity's like the small intestines, and Rush Limbaugh's like the large intestines.
Got it.
Yeah, and they create the waste that is our country.
So, in this metaphor, is Putin like a Mexican burrito, like dipped in tequila?
Nice.
Putin's like the chef that's knowingly serving you that burrito.
Right.
No, Putin,
check this out.
Yeah, I hate, since we created Trump as an asshole, what I have to say next is just, it's foul. I hate, but I have to say it.
So are our times.
Putin is the world's strap-on.
Right.
Hey, that's okay, man. He sure is. And he's proud of it. I mean, in a way, you got to be a little bit proud of him, too, even if he's despicable. But, you know, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Nikki Haley is the middle finger.
Oh, yeah. By the way, speaking of the prediction,
Nikki Haley is... Okay, sorry. But
she's the middle finger.
I want to come back to this and predict it, Rob, and I'm sorry.
Go.
But there's this other politician that's in the media, and I don't remember her name now, but I know you guys will know what I'm talking about. Here's the story, and I want to come back to it. Democrat running for president.
Oh, Tulsi Gabbard.
Thank you. Who's being accused of Russia, white nationalism.
We should go. We should cover that.
I got to talk about that. But go ahead, Rob. That just made me think of it. Go ahead.
Well, let's talk about Tulsi
Nikki
Gabbard.
Haley's the middle finger. But
Yeah,
what is
we
Tulsi
can-
Gabbard?
Yeah, we can go into the Tulsi Gabbard thing because
Is she the skin tag? Is she a virus? What's going on there?
I don't know. She's not.
I feel like did we not call out or mention Russian plant potential with her last week?
We
I don't
probably did.
remember.
Right after the debate, and then
I think
Clinton was basically saying the same shit.
Yeah,
Does she listen to the Flawedcast?
I think so. Yeah, I think Clinton gets a lot of her ideas from here. It's been clear to me for a while. But on a serious note, so the predicted thing, the night before the Canadian election, I go on there, and it's like chance of Trudeau becoming prime minister again. And I thought, motherfucker's going to be prime minister, you know, whatever. So I bought like, whatever, I don't even remember, like $4 or something worth of whatever shares at like 77 cents. They were expensive for predicted. But he won. And so I won like, whatever, 75 more cents on top of what I spent. And I was walking the dog after I kicked down the signs and stuff, you know, and I thought to myself, if I'd have put like $1,000 into that the night before, I would have come up. And it made me realize I need to go scale up on this shit and bet and predict things.
It'd be like, what, $165 or something like that.
And imagine, who doesn't want to win $165?
It's 16% return. It's great.
It's better than like waiting for fucking.
I think it's higher. Banks. It must is so.
How confident are you right now, Rob, that Donald Trump is going to be the U.S. sitting president on January 1st, 2020?
Enough so that I've bet $15 against it, and if I win, I'm gonna get 100, like that one because.
Wait, how do you win? If he's still president, you win.
No, if he's not president, because people think that's unlikely.
Right.
And so I bought low, so to speak, But I put like $15 into it, and so my max winning potential is like $130 or something like that.
I mean, I have a I put a total of $10 into this app, and I ended up doing 30. I had to like a fucking fiend. No. I mean, but like that's like I just made myself like $10, and then I'll just see it from there. But I'm curious what that is, what is running right now. It'll take me a second to log in anyway. But I only bought like 10 shares in that outcome.
I had to buy some.
Yeah,
and I'm just saying. This wouldn't be a bad way to, it wouldn't be a bad way to make a little dough, you know? Like, imagine if people started saying, like, so what brought you to this yacht? How come you're cruising in Thailand and so on? Well, you know, I just kind of happen to have a little bit of a, you know, sense for politics. I bet on it, and that's how I make my money. I Flawedcast, and I bet on politics.
I Flawedcast, and I bet on politics.
And I go on yachts.
Yeah. And I
do spend a lot of time on yachts. Like mostly yachts.
Double yacht.
These days it's mostly
like catamaran. Is that what when they're 2 holes?
Oh no, I thought you were talking about like executive class yachts.
Oh, I am, but I'm wondering
something footers.
What about 2 of those connected?
It's that has been a dream of mine for so long, Rob.
They've got like just a row of helicopters carrying aircraft carriers across the ocean.
Yes. I love that. Oh.
I mean, at this rate, with my predictive abilities, I wouldn't say.
Did you say a fleet of helicopters carrying aircraft carriers across an ocean? That's brilliant.
So it never touches the water.
Exceedingly efficient. Yeah.
It's literally you've got like you imagine like the right? Except they're like what's the super badass helicopter that the Army has?
Not the Blackhawk, right?
Blackhawk, right?
No, but there's a bigger one.
The big one, the carrier.
Oh, Apache.
Yeah.
I think there's an even bigger one.
Isn't the Apache the one with double choppers?
Is it that the Apache? Okay.
I don't know, to be honest.
So let's say there's like 40 Apaches like in an arrangement carrying 2 aircraft carriers as if the aircraft carriers are just like skiing on the water.
Oh, God, I love it.
That's it's like Bob's vacation yacht.
It's like a
It's a little noisy, but it'll work.
It's a 6,000 person crew.
It's not
for
quite
Rob to go on vacation.
6,000. How many aircraft carriers? Like
I don't know.
60,000.
Right, there you go.
There's some fools on those.
You know what? Sorry, let me take it back. Chinook. Those are Chinooks.
The Chinooks. There we go. Love it. And the C-130 is the big transport plane that like they haul tanks on.
Yeah, that's the one that crashed in Georgia like a year ago, super fucking sketch style.
Yeah.
So, see, this
Boeing
is
DH-47
the Chinook. Yeah.
Mishak, you're talking about like 35 of these.
Yeah, a fucking like a bird grouping of like a fish school of those.
But it's one of those things that makes me ask a few questions. First of all, how did the Pacific Northwest Native tribes feel about their term for Chinook, a type of species of salmon being used to define a U.S. machine of war? And secondly, how do the salmon feel about their name?
Well,
as far as how the Native Americans around here, and now commonly people refer to king salmon as often as Chinook.
I think when it comes to Native American names, they got a lot of fish to fry, including the helicopters.
Yeah.
Seattle, Oklahoma, like the whole country is just like totally renting without paying for all that kind of terminology. As to the salmon, I bet you they're flattered.
Well, let me say something. I'm going to tell you right now, the salmon have bigger fish to fry with the fact that with the local football team snubbed them for fucking Seahawks. I'm going to tell you right now, the salmon are more obsessed with that because that's nonsense.
But apparently we're going to have a hockey team named the Sockeyes.
Is that what it's called? I hope so.
I've heard.
That's what I believe. It should be the Sockeyes because in hockey you sock eyes. You take off the mask.
I love that. I didn't get that at first, but I love that.
I
love that. Gotcha.
And it's spelled like that. It's spelled literally sock eye.
Okay, well, I dig it. All right, I missed that at first. But salmon still got fucked on the football team.
Right now, they do. It could change because there's the XFL now again, huh?
Oh, that's true, man.
Is it back?
Seattle salmon comes into the XFL. I am such an XFL fan. I want to see those uniforms, dude. I want to see a nude football team on TV. That's what that's going to look like. That's what
Okay.
an all
I wasn't-
uniform is going to look like.
Oh.
Human flesh.
See, I took it a whole different way. I didn't think of that. I thought,
Actually,
what if the helmets were in the shape of the fish's mouth?
Oh.
And so everybody on the
Really
field
fast,
actually
all
kind of looked like a buff man salmon. Salmon.
Salmon.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Like,
this is
Sam
strong.
the Salmon Man.
that's actually what we should
Conversation.
call the team.
Salmon.
Salmen. Salmen. And then each individual player can be a salman.
Ooh, salmon and salmon.
Very northwest.
It
Cedar
is.
planks as shields. Because
But it's not very northwest of us to
We
think that this would just be a men's team.
Colored
Oh, fuck.
is the only thing I care about any of this. I just
Sal
want
women?
colored uniforms.
Sally's.
You can have it.
I'm trying to find. I'm going to stop looking. I was trying to find this. You guys know uncrate.com? I'll share my screen. It's going to be a little less interesting, but I'll train it. We'll make it interesting.
Remind me of your yachts again, because I'd like to talk about that.
Oh, well, let's go back to it, because I was looking for something, but I was going to show you this crazy site. But
I think the site might have a yacht that it looks like this is the type of place where you get the yacht we're talking about.
oh, it almost certainly does.
Well, I mean, although the advertising money has been really great from the Flawedcast, I'm still a little out of the market for thinking about a vehicle of this caliber.
Right.
The type of vehicle that I'd prefer to think about is actually far grander in scale, and it involves, just like the theoretical Rob yacht, tied together ginormous boats. And I was thinking, like,
Bjorn's been on this for about 20 years.
I have been on this
So wait,
for a long time.
this is sticking with the mega Republican theme of joining things together into one mega.
Except this is
probably minus the Republican part.
minus the actual
Fewer
Republican
Republicans, but the same.
Double the mega,
Transform.
subtract
Right.
the MAGA. Double
you for
mega.
clearing that up.
Multiply the Republicans by 0.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, no MAGA,
Yes.
yes mega.
In parentheses. In
Exactly.
parentheses, Republicans times 0. Continue with the equation.
Right.
So the idea came out of a grandiose late teenage dream of a vessel to survive some sort of post-apocalyptic instance and changing climate, etc., economic collapse, war, and be able to be on the seas and support a large group of people, potentially up to like 10,000, create its own food, its own energy, navigate, even if it was at a slow pace, around the world to safe places, and then combine that with like a cultural reference point. And if the world is all hunky-dory and everything isn't war and cataclysm, you're touring the earth to visit its great ports and providing an amazing like theatrical musical experience for folks, a multimedia art show, and then you can take them out into international waters to do so. So they're open to do as they like in many ways. Yeah,
prostitution, drugs.
I wasn't thinking about prostitution particularly, but gambling and drugs.
Don't judge.
Were part of the thought process. So the idea, Mishak, we're losing you a little bit there. I think you hit the mute button.
I hit the mute button, so I'm just talking onto the air just to make gestures.
Yes. I like
very
that.
mysterious.
Cool. That's like the sound that a person on a boat makes when you're at a distance from them.
Exactly.
Like that.
So the idea that I came up with was to have and kind of an incoming port and an outgoing flow in the direction of travel, and have kind of a oval elliptical shaped structure that had a really deep keel to survive any sort of storms, and basically had a false beach around it. So
can you give me a scale? How big are we talking?
We're talking like
I need a diameter here.
Are we talking like, Noah's Ark? We measuring in like
a couple kilometers,
cubits,
maybe.
Many
cubits.
cubits.
Measuring in cubits.
A few kilometers in length.
Kilometers. We're talking about like.
Can we do miles? Why don't we do miles?
8,000, 9,000.
Mile and a half.
A mile and change. Yeah.
Yeah. Straight from one end to the other end of this boat you're describing is a mile.
Yes. Yeah.
Got it.
and it's an oval, so that's the long end, and the short end's like.
And then it's maybe a little narrower, closer to just a mile.
It's the floating island.
A mile by a mile and a half, give or take.
Cool. I like that.
And so on the long sides, there's basically a port, and you're moving in along the long side, right? So there's an incoming area of water that then the hull shape funnels that water down into a pressured situation where it goes through a series of turbines and regenerates a little bit of the electricity that you're using by other means like solar and wind to move this vessel. So you're involved in constant recycling of energy just by like a certain type of hull design and the pressure of water.
Plus solar.
And then plus solar. And furthermore,
tidal.
To prevent big issues with storms and things like that, having a fake beach. So have waves break when the land underneath them is at a certain depth. And if you're a ship that has straight or, sides that actually go up away from the water as it comes out of the water, the waves will break against the side of it relentlessly. Or they won't break, they'll just roll it, as they move through the sea. But if you have a false beach ringing the entire perimeter,
don't get me started on them false beaches.
You have oceanic swells and waves coming in and being forced to break onto this false shore, in which you have pads that all sit on springs that are all tied to gears that create electricity for you. So every time every wave breaks along the side of this mobile island, you're generating energy. And then in the center, having kind of two hillsides just to maximize angular potential for growing foods. And so you kind of have these vertical farming arrangements, but that followed the contours of these hills. And then turning it into something that kind of actually looks like an island, like completely covering it with foliage and greenery and managing all of your freshwater resources really well. All of those things kind of tied into this futuristic community living. And I've got a lot of old sketches from back in the day. Like, I got really into this.
I like the idea. I always like the idea. I'm a big fan. I'd live on this thing.
I'm so disappointed.
But one of the later ideas I had.
I thought this whole thing was leading to total annihilation of some enemy. I thought
you don't even know that it's not yet.
This
he hasn't even
warship.
gotten to the annihilation.
You just created paradise on a warship. Why would you? That is a dominant.
Once you have
that
paradise,
can destroy things, and you want to make fruit on it. Fucking go kill people, man. I thought that's where this is going.
Yeah.
What's the cost for entry? How do you become a citizen of the micronation floating island that you're proposing?
So I think there'd be a few different ways that it would work, because you wouldn't want to take people simply based on their value and what they could actually put up easily.
Right.
You want to really mix
group because they were good at shooting guns or
blowing
things up. That's ruled out.
There has to be defense. There will be. I'm not saying there's not defense. You're basically creating your own nation here, a micronation. So you have
those are things. Defense. That's a real thing.
Absolutely, yeah. But I was thinking, so the main hull, if you put a whole bunch of these super tankers together, the ones that they take to like Myanmar and Bangladesh, there's a lot of places there that they just scrap these huge old super tankers, get the iron out of it, send it back up to the boat manufacturers or to recycling plants, and then they make new boats out of this shit. But instead of scrapping them all, take them in decent shape, because we don't really need them to work. We just need them to be big holes. So you patch anything that's really leaking, then you strap them together, and then you build a super hull out of a poly of some sort and fill it with capped plastic bottles that are all tied together in nets. So it's an unsinkable vessel.
Hold on. Let me just upgrade you, I think, for the year 2019. 2 ways to just help this along. Number 1, instead of the massive holes, do everything you're saying, but do shipping containers just so they're smaller compartments of them, and then bring them together. And then you're going to say, well, where's the dry dock, right, to build this thing? Because that's pretty big, right? You're going to have to build this huge thing. No, because thanks to climate change and sea level rise, what we do is we just strategically build it on a place that in a couple of years, by the time we're done, is going to be submerged, right?
Yeah.
So you can actually feasibly build this. You just start bringing in the containers, bringing in the plastic. In fact, those guys, that like 4Ocean thing, I bet you they're sneaky trying to do this. They heard your plan. And they're trying to beat you to the punch because they're getting all the plastic out of the water now for themselves, like a bunch of greedy cocksuckers.
We should have stopped broadcasting all these brilliant ideas a long time ago.
I know.
I'm trying to tell you that. We should keep it to ourselves.
No. Like the light bulb. That was our shit.
What the hell were we thinking there, man? We made nothing on that idea.
I know, except a little bit.
I have never seen a dime from light bulb royalties. Never in my life.
I know, but there is a movie about Edison and Tesla now coming out, I think. It's called The Current Wars. And I'm actually curious about that,
well, if he did ever receive a dime, I'd sue him for it because those are my royalties.
Too bad The Current Wars. Sorry, quick side note. I bet you The Current Wars talks about how Edison is a fucking genius. And like,
I hate to say it, but you're probably right.
And Tesla's like some fucking pirate and shit like that. Sorry, but
no, you're probably right.
But I want to believe
it's sad. If that one battle had gone the other way,
Tesla versus Edison,
the world that we live in could have been. I mean,
it would have been the future in like 1930.
Yeah, would have been in space instead of going to World War II.
Yeah.
But do you think that would have just I'm with you. My mind goes to the Jetsons, right? But where my mind goes after, if we got to the Jetsons in 1930,
then you go to 1984.
Exactly. You get from 1930 in 1950. This is a dystopia.
Yeah.
We needed to go slower.
That fast, we were not ready for that. In 1930, if we had fucking flying cars, are you kidding me?
You could totally see that in the low-key message of The Current Wars. Look, Tesla was probably smarter and better, but think about how if he had really won, things would have developed too quickly. We couldn't handle it. Edison saved the world.
I mean, I just think about when you think about there are still people out there spending a lot of energy trying to prove that no man has ever stepped on the moon.
I know. Right? I watched the documentary.
Spinning not just these aren't just theories of I'm writing comments, right? I'm gonna fucking spend money and make a movie about this and promote it, and not one person. It's happening.
Yeah.
Right? There's energy being spent trying to disprove the obviously valuable steps that humanity has made to perpetuate humanity.
Wow.
Humans are trying to disprove that. Now, if we had fucking flying spaceships in 1930 when they didn't know the details of genetics, they had fucking no idea about modern technology, they didn't have internet, are we assuming all of that stuff implodes at once in 1930?
It's very possible.
All I can tell you is, thank God it all waited until the 80s. How good it is now.
Perfectly stable.
Yeah.
Because things couldn't be better.
Yeah, exactly.
We survived it without a scratch.
It's hard to imagine it having
it's
gotten better.
Really. Star Wars, the walls are closing in, and then you just get out in time. That was history. Thank you, God. We just made it.
I mean, we do live in a really lucky part and time in the world.
That's true.
When look, not only do we have the luxury to sit around and do this with some of our time, but we also,
I don't know what this is, but it's crazy.
You mean a responsibility? We're the flawed staff, and we have a job to do.
True.
Generationally, there has been no draft to fight. There has been no, except for the fucking mass shootings and school shootings.
Speak for yourself. I've been fighting a draft all night. I was drafting this apartment. It's driving me insane.
I believe that. Yeah. Drafty bastard. Talk about backdraft. Ooh, damn. Rob is pouring a draft, although not really, but
it's like a draft.
Nonetheless.
The way I'm pouring it.
Yeah, you are.
Put a head on there. Boom.
Loved it.
That's kind of like a draft.
Loved it. Like a draft. What a funny fucking word.
I know, because I always thought it was drought.
Yeah, but it's not that either. It's the opposite of drought. It's let the fucking honey flow.
I know. Yeah. You know that little babies can't eat honey?
Why?
There's something related to botulism in it, and they're too young to process it. So I got honey wheat bread, and I was just about to feed it to my son, and I said, I remember the doctor saying, about 6 or 7 months old, she goes, and he can eat, anything now that he can eat except for honey. Like that's the one thing on the no list. And I was just gonna give him some honey wheat bread. And I thought, wait a minute. And I go, but you know what? This is cooked honey in the bread. But I thought I better look this shit up on the perfect internet.
Yeah.
Everything's true and right.
Uh-huh.
And I did, and it was like, even cooked honey is not cool for babies. So I just wanted to put that out. PSA.
Wait,
Flawed
what
staff.
happens?
It's just the risk of botulism.
Great. We just dodged so many lawsuits with your disclaimer, Rob.
Yeah.
I heard people are coming after us for this baby
Don't
honey.
feed your baby honey.
Right.
We need T-shirts for this on Evil American.
Tried to make it.
Oh yeah. In fact, we'll do a Flawedcast page on the Evil American site where we can start, really selling
branding out. Yep.
Yeah.
We gotta get this message out.
Also, I want to do one that says human scum.
I think
that.
I love that.
Because that's what Trump called the never Trump people, I guess, today. He said anybody who's like a never Trumper is human scum. And I thought, well, who wouldn't want to be human scum if he's saying that? Like, that's like a fucking rite of passage of nobility. That's
a compliment.
Bobby, do me a favor. Here's the thing. I'll make this proclamation in front of the Flawedcast billions.
Please.
A lot of people.
I want that T-shirt. And I want to take a picture in that T-shirt and make it an album cover, a single cover.
The Human Scum T-shirt?
Yes. I want to be wearing a T-shirt that says Human Scum and make it an album cover and give Evil American royalties. Okay. Send me that T-shirt. Find a way to do it.
Love it.
I got a couple singles coming out. I want to do. That's fucking awesome.
The T-shirt is yours. It's coming to you.
No one is gonna buy my single or ever see this record, but I want to do it.
Oh, they will. Once they see the T-shirt, they're gonna buy it. You're gonna be vouched for. But what I gotta ask
how many views did we have on the last episode already?
It was somewhere in the millions. Yeah. Or was it billions? I don't know.
I think it was 141 million last time I checked.
Calculation algorithm on YouTube crashed trying to figure it out.
Exactly. And I'm going to just quickly point out that there was a time when 1 billion, that number, was different in the United States and in the United Kingdom. It had a different string of zeros behind it. I believe in the United Kingdom, a billion had 12 zeros or something. I don't know. You can look this up. It's actually true. This was not a settlement.
Was a trillion.
Yeah, I believe so. I believe a billion was a trillion in the UK, or
so
vice versa.
You could have 100,000 million.
I think so.
Until you got to a trillion.
Yeah, a friend of mine from England.
Interesting.
Did you look it up and prove it?
The old UK meaning of a billion was a million, or 1 followed by 12 noughts. The USA meaning of a billion is 1,000 million, or 1 followed by 9 noughts.
Exactly.
I was pretty spot on with that. Quick question for you, Mishak, before we transition. On the Human Scum shirt, I thought big block letters that
make it easy to read.
But like it would be an image of like a huge picture of the asshole face, the Trump face, but then just dissolved into the letters, so it's just like if you looked closely, you could see that was what was going on.
I like that. Yeah, okay, cool.
Okay,
I'm into that. Cool. Yeah.
Cool. All right, it's settled. We're gonna do this on the island.
Wait,
I want to live on the island.
Can I ask for one very subtle, extra piece of this?
Yeah, I'm taking notes.
Quotation marks. They don't have to be big. I just want subtle quotation marks around the two words.
You bet.
So that when it comes up, I can explain. These are not my words.
Yeah, I'm just.
It should be actually kind of obvious quotation marks, I think.
Exactly, but I think they have to be quotes because you frame it as instead
of
I'm
really
calling
good
myself.
If you could get little hands doing that.
There you go. Tiny fucking little hands.
Oh, God damn it!
Babyest fingers.
I hope nobody steals atheist fingers. Is that what you said?
Babyest.
Oh, I thought you said atheist fingers.
Atheist fingers.
That's my new producer name. Atheist fingers on the beat.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I like
that. We could just close the show out right now, but the nation would be so sad because there's so much more to give them. This is why we have the long show on the short format, because we love the nation so much. We just give.
Keep doing it. You just keep going. After a while,
it's for you.
You just get the second wind and then the third wind, and you just keep farting.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
So Bjorn, I feel like you've got some unresolved island stuff you still want to tell us.
Do I really no. Yeah, it was a. I don't know.
It's not like one of those. It is a dream.
yeah, it's a super crazy grandiose, and then you start realizing, as we're talking about worth and millions and billions of dollars, that it would require about $1 trillion to make this fucking shit happen.
Yeah, but you got to remember who has $1 trillion. But the people. Remember, we looked at that list of the billionaires that are willing to give away most of their money.
Yeah.
All you got to do is talk to a couple of those guys.
I do need to talk to them.
Okay, but let's delve into this Tulsi Gabbard thing, because this is actually quite interesting.
So she is a Russian asset. I feel like that was made clear recently with Putin's phone call.
So just to put a little flavor on that, to me, and like you said, Bjorn, maybe we even called her that on the last show before Hillary Clinton said it. But
who the fuck is Abraham Williams? People are searching for Tulsi Gabbard. Abraham Williams comes up first. Who's that?
Oh, that's sketch. That's
spouse. That's her spouse.
Oh.
So people are really into looking at her spouse because, men are gross. Men think she's an attractive candidate and are looking at her to find out if she's married, and her spouse search is the second biggest hit.
Yeah, but women would do that too. If she was an attractive male, women would be.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah.
And it's not even just genders. I mean, all people who are attracted to that person would do that, to be honest, because we're just animals at the end of the day.
That's true. That's very true.
But I don't know who Abraham Williams is, but what I just want to quickly throw in there, Bjorn, is just to put it into context. Hillary Clinton was on David Plouffe. He was an Obama guy. His podcast, and she said she thinks they're grooming Tulsi Gabbard to run as a third-party candidate. And then she said she's a favorite of the Russians.
Yep.
And they've got a lot of bots and relays and things supporting her.
Yeah.
Gabbard came out and said, "Oh my God, thank you for stepping out of the shadows, Hillary Clinton. You've proven that it's been you all along trying to destroy my character, and that this race is really just between you and me," which is, I mean, pretty out there if you ask me. The race is not between Tulsi Gabbard and Hillary Clinton,
out there,
no matter how you want to fucking slice it.
She's not even, yeah.
And then somebody said to Hillary's spokes guy, Nick something, "Is she talking about Tulsi?" And he said, "If the nesting doll fits," implying yes, right? Yes, she's a Russian asset. Then that same Nick dude, a couple days later, got mad at the New York Times because they acted like Hillary called Tulsi a Russian asset, when in fact he said Hillary only implied she was a GOP asset. And I find that interesting because he's the same guy that said if the nesting doll fits, and a few days later. So there's some odd and dodgy stuff with the Clinton side of it, right? But to drill down on it, whether or not Hillary Clinton, like somehow it becomes about Clinton then, right? Because she said it. But I'm like you. I'm like, okay, take Clinton out of it. But what are we looking at here? We're looking at a weirdo, Tulsi Gabbard, who doesn't make sense, who met with Assad, who's been endorsed by David Duke and fucking Franklin Graham. Yes, and she's a darling of Fox News. I don't know. I'm not sitting here going, oh, she's just some progressive who's getting a bad name. So it's not me siding with Hillary or a lying spokesperson, but I'm still not so sure.
The Democratic Party back in Hawaii is also turning against her. So she's up for election here again, 2020, and she's facing like the hottest contention for it that she's ever had. So there's a guy who's part of the establishment, and he's supported by 3 former Hawaii governors. All have endorsed the opponent for Gabbard for that seat. And it's a Democrat as well, but she has the toughest run just to even secure her own seat.
Wow.
And so one of the articles I was reading about her that was mentioning that was saying perhaps she's either gunning for a Fox News spot by running through this presidential campaign charade because she knows she's like there, and she knows that she would get a job there real quick, because she also knows she's going to lose her position in Hawaii.
Right. Gotta
so
make moves.
Yeah, so she's like trying to swing through this on some Tarzan with the vine stuff, like, ooh, I'm going to bounce off this tree to my final landing spot. I know you guys love my analogies.
What if it's
Go.
What if it's a Russian version of the Truman Show?
You mean she's like not a real person, or wait?
No, I think she's 100% real in this scenario. Hypothetically, what if pre-2016, right? The 2016 election, Russia's doing all kinds of plans to get Trump elected. Let's assume for a second that they decided that sometime in 2014.
Yeah.
Right. At that point, you don't make that big of a bet without some contingency plans. So let's say sometime before that, before they're like planning on these big bets, we're just like we're planting seeds all over the place, right? We're trying to like figure some stuff out. So one of the experiments that we're doing is there are some American politicians that we think in the next couple of decades are going to be relevant that we're kind of nurturing along the way.
Yeah.
At the right time, they're just going to realize that they're so far in the spider's web that there is absolutely no way out, and you just play your fucking cards, right? You just do what you're told.
Yeah.
And what if that happened?
Yeah.
That moment where Tulsi Gabbard realized she's in the spider's web, right? Your entire life and your career has been built around Russian influence, and now everyone who is supporting you and everyone who's keeping you afloat is actually a Russian operative, and all of these people are trying to get Trump in office, and you realize that during, let's say, sometime in 2016. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Great.
So at that point, she's on the Committee of Foreign Affairs, she's doing all kinds of stuff in Congress, like she's relevant, but by then she knows that she is an operative whether she likes it or not.
Well, so that's I like it. It's to me not that even novel, because if you look at someone like Lindsey Graham, it's not that different really. It's like
right.
In fact, it even Trump, to an extent, because my understanding of the way, and it's probably not, it's easy to say Russian spies or Russian espionage, but my understanding of the way like just general espionage works is that you find ways to implicate people without them knowing it, and then show them that, like, look, you're already fucked, right? Like you did X, which now we can expose you for, right? So to an extent, I mean, is that because you have to look at someone like Lindsey Graham, right? And Rand Paul. I heard him on the ABC News Powerhouse Politics podcast today. He had like an extended interview, and it was just like googly, like what the fuck is this guy talking? Like the leaps that he has to go through to try to make sense. They were like, well, is this a quid pro quo that the president's involved with? And he was like, well, what the Democrats are accusing Trump of, they've done too, because what about Hillary and the Michael Steele dossier? He was a British national, and she paid him money to dig up dirt on her opponent. So if the Democrats are saying Trump is wrong for doing that, what about Hillary? And they were kind of like, okay, they gave him the benefit of the doubt. They didn't say like, well, Hillary wasn't the president, she wasn't using like the mechanisms of the American government to do this stuff. They let his like little analogy go, but they were like, but would you say that if that's what he did, it's wrong? And Rand Paul cannot answer whether it's wrong. He can only equate it to what Democrats are doing. Like, no matter how blatant, like, and straightforward the question, he cannot come close to it without just the whataboutism stuff. And I think if you're someone who's exposed in that way, who knows, like, I'm not credible, like, you don't have a lot of choice but to just cling to, like, feeble, futile, nonsensical arguments, right? Like, so anyway.
So for the last several years, I've lived with my cousin and his now 10-year-old twins, Jude and Marin. Some of my favorite people. They're amazing humans. But
identical or fraternal?
Paternal, male and female, and brilliant, independent, different kids. I kind of moved in and started getting to know them when they were about 6 and 7. The pattern you just called out, Rob, is what they do every day with each other, every time they get in trouble. anything they've done. Jude,
Yeah,
have you done your homework? Jude, have you done your homework? Marin hasn't read all day. Marin, have you cleaned this room? Jude has been playing soccer in the backyard all day.
Exactly.
Right.
It's an instant, like, there is another finger to point.
Oh my God.
Please point this
You
finger.
just blew my mind. Do you realize these people are twins?
That's
a twin.
exactly what I'm
Lindsay's a
saying.
twin.
No. The Democratic and
Oh,
Republican
shit.
Party
Exactly.
are twins.
There you
Yeah,
go.
but that's a metaphor.
That's what
This
I'm
is
saying.
fact. These fucking humans literally have, like, you can't tell when the Lindsay versus, like, Cinzygram is out. You know what I mean? You don't know which one is which. You know, Rand Paul and Dan Paul. They're, like,
Paul
identical.
Ryan.
Paul Ryan and Saul Ryan. Like, they're
Yep.
the same. They look the same. They sound the same. They're not the same, but they put them out there in that exact way. Jesus fucking Christ. You just cracked the code on this whole... You know, Putin's probably going to come after us now that we figured this shit out.
Oh yeah.
It's all twins. It's been twins.
Vladimir
Always
Putin,
been twins.
Zucker Putinberg.
Second character I want from American Evil, it's been twins.
It's always been twins. That's on the back. It's been
It's
twins.
done been
It's
twins.
always been twins.
Okay. That's strong.
Yeah.
Was it Warren or was it another candidate that said that in the friendship question on the last debate that they had, because I want to talk about Andrew Yang as well.
Oh,
that
yeah.
they,
He'd like you to talk about him, too.
I think Warren said that one of her strange friendships was with Rand Paul, and that
Really?
she worked on legislation with him
That's
and
true.
crossed the aisle and things like that. And they said the McCain thing, like Biden, her, and another person all were like
Klobuchar was jocking.
Klobuchar was jocking McCain, and I'm like, okay, like you're name dropping this guy who's like somehow like okay with Democrats, even though he voted against healthcare on several occasions, and even though he flew in from
midnight. Yeah.
he did do the thing eventually, but
midnight,
he
2 in the morning.
stalled on it for
Wait, what was the thing?
He did this. He was the deciding vote in the Senate to like repeal Obamacare.
Yeah.
And it was like he was brain cancer treatment, and he showed up, and it was like 2 a.m. and he did that, and everybody was like, "Oh, sorry."
Right.
So great, kudos. Like
I watched the soap opera.
Besides that and a
That's
few
what
other
we-
things, he was a pretty entrenched Republican, like
Yeah.
and like so calling him out as this odd friendship, I wasn't digging that. And then she said Rand Paul. I'm like, oh gosh, that's just
That's a lot
18
worse.
times worse.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'll take McCain over Rand Paul every day. Like
Me too.
so anyways, good for you on being out there and crossing the aisle, but damn it, choose some classier, more
Yeah.
cross the aisle worthy folk.
Or just kick
To
Republicans, kick signs when they even just say we're Republican and say fuck it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, kick
It's another
in
way.
the face.
It's another way to do it.
Can I just call out just one thing that's obvious, just as a 10-second?
Yeah,
It was
Side
really
note.
triplets.
Yeah, it's probably triplets. But
Okay.
like, just for my own sake, just so I can verbalize for Flawedcast Nation my own vote in that thing that we just said. John McCain literally put his life on the line for a cause he believed in when he came and was fucking tortured
Yeah.
and literally
That's why he gets it pretty.
did what he signed off on doing, and he kept his word to the American
he did.
nation. And then he came back, and instead of coming back with every justification in the world, and I would be a John McCain fan if he had come back bitter and angry and all the other things, because that's justified. But instead, he became a fucking senator.
Yeah,
and
he's
he
kind
did
of
a
a
bunch
little
of shit.
bitter and angry.
Right? He's totally fine, but like, he still came back and did what he could.
No, you're right,
to
and more
help
service, as it's
But
called.
like, I don't agree with all his and then compare
You're absolutely
that,
right.
and
No
then
question.
compare that to Rand Paul, not Ron Paul, right?
Yeah.
Not the man who served in the Senate, not the man who delivered 1,000 babies, not the
I
Rand.
think Ron Paul was
his
actually
son.
a House member.
Right, but
Rand is
but
Senate.
his son is the point. The guy that, as far as I can tell, is just a walking talking point.
And a basket of scrambled eggs on his head.
Nothing makes sense to me. It's entirely talking points from this man. So just for my own sanity, just to verbalize it, they're apples and fungus. It's not even close to comparing these two.
I like that. Don't even give them oranges, man.
Interesting, yeah.
Wow.
No, I will cede that, like, I found myself being a John McCain hater so often as an adult, because he was often the talking piece
policies were
for so much of the Republican Party.
Bomb Iran. That was John McCain. That was John McCain, to be clear. He was a war file. Totally.
Yeah,
however, in the situation, he did what all of us want someone to do in that situation.
Yeah.
Like, don't fucking kill all of it. Don't turn over. Don't, like, please just stay on our side. He did that, and he came back.
Yeah. No, and he deserves a lot of accolades. He is, for lack of a better set of terms, he's an American hero for all that. And for making something out of his life. I just, as an adult, have heard nothing but him being the mouthpiece for a lot of bullshit. Yeah. And therefore, I can't be a fanboy. Totally. Although I really do appreciate him.
I'd say you're a nuanced individual, Bjorn. I think the way you're seeing things isn't necessarily just like good or bad. And I would argue that this guy, McCain, like, he had moments in his life that were stronger than others, and there was a time, I think he was in the primaries against George W. Bush in the 2000 election, and he was much more moderate than George at that time. George was like supposedly a compassionate conservative. That was the brand he was running on, but even then, McCain was more like a pragmatic, like, just like, hey, I'm conservative deep down, but I'm a good guy kind of guy. Yeah. I feel like that was the energy, and I remember thinking, I'd take McCain for president if I can't get Al Gore. And I didn't even really want Al Gore at the time, but I thought Al Gore is at least a fucking Democrat, but I'd be cool with McCain. I couldn't accept George Bush. Nobody would allow George Bush to get the nomination. And then his bumbling, stupid ass got the nomination, right? And so McCain remained in that lane, I think, for a lot of Democrats for like 8 years of good faith. And then in 2008, the motherfucker chooses Sarah Palin as his running mate. And he did the bomb Iran thing that Meshach was talking about. Yeah. He did a number of things. And one of his moments that people point to as like the shining thing, as the woman said to him, that Obama is a Arab. And he's no good or something. And John McCain took the mic from her and said, no, man. He's a good person, an American. We just happen to disagree. And people say, God damn it, that John McCain, what a good guy. Even when he could have just jumped on the thing, he pushed back. And there's some truth to that. But on the other hand, if you dissect what he said, the woman called him an Arab or a Muslim, one of the two. I don't know which. I feel like it was Arab, but it might have been Muslim. Yeah. And John McCain's response was like, no, he's a good man. Which kind of implies that to be an Arab or a Muslim would mean he wasn't a good man. You know what I mean? Which is not implicit. Like, that's actually not true. Like, he could have been Arab or Muslim. I mean, he wasn't, and still been a good American. So to me, the proper response would have been like, no, ma'am, that's just not who he is. True. Like, that's just factually not who he is. Not what you're saying means he's bad and he's actually good. So, just like, I'm holding the Sarah Palin thing, that thing, and a number of things he did in the 2008 campaign against him, and the fact that at the end of the day he was still a Republican when Trump was in charge, and I don't think there's any honor in that. No. The only honorable Republicans are the ones who stop being Republicans. You know what I mean? Like,
honestly, yes.
I can use an NFL draft analysis term that I think applies here. Still comparing John McCain to Rand Paul. John McCain has a much higher ceiling and a much lower floor.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, that sounds
Rand Paul is effectively useless. But John McCain is, from a very practical standpoint, for all the reasons you're describing, Rob, which I totally agree with, he has a way lower floor because he had some authority and he had some real opportunities, and he could have been a renegade and he could have done these things in different ways that he tried to brand himself as being. And instead, in a lot of scenarios, he was
maverick,
a warmonger and a party player for a lot of scenarios. He did have his moments, where he fought against his party, and for that, in certain moments, we're all grateful. But
I thumbs up that.
And he absolutely had his moments where he served his country in ways that I certainly have not done and will not do, and am not willing to do. So congratulations.
Yeah.
So I sincerely, he's not on the same planet as Rand Paul, but to your point, way lower floor than Rand Paul because he took no risks. Like Rand Paul took no risks to get where he is.
By the way, is there a prediction on whether or not Trump will insult Elijah Cummings in his posthumous state? Because R.I.P. Elijah Cummings, he died since our last cast.
Yeah.
And I was shocked that Trump didn't immediately come out and just start talking shit because it's so his style, just like...
Oh, God, he had to bite his tongue. You know he did.
You know what he said instead? He said the impeachment is like a lynching.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
And can I just quickly dwell on that?
Yeah, sure.
Please.
And here's because it made me think a little bit. When I had a brief stint at the University of Washington, didn't finish, but I took a class from a guy called Albert Black, and it was the sociology of African Americans, and he delved pretty deep into lynching, which I had to realize in hindsight I didn't know much about at all until I was in a position to take a university college course from a scholar in the field. But I didn't learn in public school or my day-to-day life the real truth of the history of lynching in the United States, right? And I'm not saying that as an excuse for people who don't know it, but it made me realize that, and for certain not for Trump, but for a lot of the like run-of-the-mill people, they don't even have a fucking clue what lynching means. Like, they don't get it. Like, a lot of these, like, just fucking cookie-cutter white Republican type of people, they don't understand that, like, there used to be crowds of people who cheered and jeered and joined along as the most fucking despicably horrific terrorism took place in front of their eyes, cheered it on, and newspapers and photographers documented that shit as if it were like justice or something. So, I
want to say it was 100 years ago, 1919, and I feel like they might call it the Red Summer, but there were thousands of black people hung across this country.
The stuff that they did,
just a rash of mob action, with tiny provocations, to the point or none, to the point where some black communities actually started fighting back. There had been people that came back from World War I who'd fought there, who were members of the African American community, and came back and were like, no, you're not lynching us. We still have rifles and know how to use them. And so there was like, I think the number was like 4,000 something people died that summer from the violence, mostly like 80-90%.
One thing I know though, regardless of any noble fight that was put back by such people, like the system, the law enforcement, everybody was there to, like, I mean, for no reason whatsoever. The real details of the lynching, because it kind of, like, the way I heard it described on the news in the last couple of days was like sometimes without even any crime being committed and no due process, like, as if, like, that implies that the victims of lynching were somehow maybe in some instances deserving of this thing, which is just fucking disgusting.
Exactly.
Like some of the people who were lynched were pregnant women, and they literally cut open their stomachs and ripped out the fetus. That's not like an exaggeration. That's something that was done in crowds that people cheered on and took pictures of. And I think there's a point where Americans just don't necessarily even know the history of this country. And it's like, it just reminded me that education, is so key, because if you put these facts in front of people who aren't going to deny them, like your Rand Pauls who are just going to pretend like that isn't the truth or come up with some whataboutism or whatever else, But if you really show people, hey, like I know you were born in 1981 or whatever, but in 1919 or in 18 this or whatever, this is the kind of stuff that was going on, and you really, really showed it to the people in a honest to goodness way, I just feel like it would open a lot of eyes, But the truth is, I didn't learn this going to public school in supposed inner city schools in Seattle, Washington, like liberal Seattle. So it just makes me wonder how a lot of these people are just so probably off the mark on what they're.
Well, I think another interesting part about this is that, we're three white guys talking about this right now. I don't know what depth of awareness about particulars exists within the Black community in America, but I do know that awareness about exactly what lynching means and the history that surrounds it is very much a core of knowledge, and so it's this capacity for the country's greater consciousness to dismiss the experience set of 15 to 20% of its population, and kind of create a new narrative type of history that just doesn't even talk about that set of experiences.
Right. I think that's important too, because if you think about it, if you're from a community that's experienced this, then no matter what the education system is, due to the survival element of it, it's going to be passed down to you on some level, or at least I shouldn't say it's going to be, but it's going to be much more likely to be passed down. Yeah. And interestingly, there's a member of Congress, Gregory Meeks. He's a representative from New York's 5th congressional district, as it were. And in the 90s, he had referred, he's a Black dude, he had referred to the impeachment of Clinton as a political lynching. So people jumped on him today and said, oh, well, hold on, Rep. Meeks, but you'd said the same kind of thing. And I heard him today on the CNN thing, and he said, it's absolutely, you cannot even pretend to equate the two things. And he talked about the history of his father and his family and what that word meant to them. And he was to say that him using it and qualifying it as a political lynching versus Trump using it with no qualifications and then just trying to act like that's equal is in itself just a fucking farce. You know what I mean?
Can we talk for a second about why lynching?
What do you mean?
The term that why did he use that term?
No. Why you hang a man from his neck
as a display, as a sick display to everyone, the people on your side and on the other side, other side, on the humanity.
I think that's partly true. Side. I think that's part of it.
It's terrorism,
but
absolute terrorism. Right?
Yeah, I agree totally. I think there's another word. I think there's tribalism, and specifically. So, my experience, as we've talked about before, growing up in the South, you guys grew up in the Pacific Northwest, I grew up in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas. Extremely overtly racist areas, not overtly segregated necessarily, because I grew up in mostly poor areas, so poor white people and poor Black people live very close together. But racism was not passive. It was racism was not intolerance growing up, right? It's not, man, I wish those guys would park somewhere else, right? That's not racism itself. Racism is hatred. It's warfare. It's fucking vile, intense dehumanization, right? And that kind of vile, intense dehumanization requires buy-in. Now, if you're just a racist piece of shit and you pull a gun on somebody, you're just some white dude in the South and you pull a gun and shoot somebody who's Black, it's kind of one-on-one at that point. You might have a bunch of other white people who will be on your side and say you had to do it and it was self-defense or whatever, but it's more of a pep rally for all the other racists around you if you get them involved first. If you tie up this boy with a bunch of other people who has just done some totally minuscule thing, and then you rally all the troops and say, here's an example of all the other shit that's going on. Let's all get together and make an example of this person. So let's hang him from a tree until he's dead, like he's just some thing we shot in the field. And let's just field dress him and cut open his stomach and pull out his intestines like an animal. And let's send a message to all the other people who are like him that they're not human. If I just shoot him, then I'm scared of him. I shot him because he might have hurt me. I don't need a self-defense argument here. What I need here is a dehumanization argument. Lynching is a dehumanization argument that requires a tribe. You cannot hang someone by yourself. Try it. Try to go and capture someone and hang it. Yeah. It's not going to happen. You need a tribe to do it. You need the community to buy into it. Lynching was always a statement of the dehumanization of another person.
And I think to me,
it's way beyond a violent act.
And I would say beyond. The resonant part of what you're saying in particular for me is that inherently to do that, you need some buy-in, implicit or explicit or both, from the community at large. Absolutely. Right? Like, and so that's why to me the education part seems so key, is that it's like what I genuinely think probably most Americans don't realize is that this isn't something, because I think, let me just try to conjure up what my brain would have thought if I didn't, or before I knew a little bit more about it. I'm not saying I know everything about it. I could learn a lot more. But there was a point when I think I would have thought, oh, this is a couple of those redneck, fucked up people that still exist today, but there were more of back then, that got together, drank some beers, and then, like 5 to 10 of them, or 20 even, did this disgusting act. Maybe they were cops, maybe they were working in the court system, maybe they had all these ways that they could do it and not get in trouble. But it was still a sick, twisted, small group of assailants, when the truth is, that may have been the people who actually, kicked the stool out or whatever the fuck they did. I don't know. But it was in many, many cases amongst a large crowd of either cheering, jeering, or awestruck citizens, white citizens, who in many cases believed, oh, that person somehow violated some law and they deserve this. And if, like, to me, no being deserves that. Like, I don't believe in boiling lobsters alive because it tastes good. I certainly don't believe in torturing another human being because they did something wrong. Like when you think about ISIS and, drowning people in cages or lighting them on fire, that kind of stuff, like there's nothing you could do. Donald Trump, I don't want to see that happen to, as much as I hate him. I want to see him in jail. I want to see his mouth taped shut. I want to see him fucking, have to listen punished to people. Right. Yeah, I want to see him have to listen and stop talking. I would love him to live in a world where his voice was irrelevant and everyone else's voice was inescapable for him. But I don't want to see some sort of brutal, torturous murderer upon him. I don't believe in the death penalty. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't. Even for sick, twisted individuals, I think they should be forced to dwell in the sorrow and just despicableness of their actions. You know what I mean? Well, but this stuff happened amongst regular folk who said, this is cool.
And I think that, as Mishak was talking about, like, the distinctions on what your life is like, I think in the South, as a white person or a black person, if you're poor, are not that vast.
No, yeah, exactly.
People are inhabiting the same communities, etc. Exactly, and I think that type of white racism is so particularly born of an ignorance and a capacity to separate yourself from these historical facts and particulars. And if you have an education that's a little more upfront about speaking to an empathy of what the black community has gone through in that neighborhood for the last several hundred years. I still think there's a capacity to speak to the humanity in people, even though I will call all Trump supporters racist. And I will say that most of this country is racist in some way, or
but it's a spectrum, right? Too, right?
But yeah, absolutely. But I still think that because of that, we can speak to a humanity and even perhaps the most vile of us, and encourage some, like, whether it's really you try, it's hard to try that person's shoes on without flogging them, beating them, and lynching them, etc. But like, put your best capacity to imagine if that was your community that had endured this violence and this subjugation for this many years, and you continued every time you stepped out of the door into the community to encounter that sort of shit. How would you feel?
Right. Well, like, I mean, to a large extent, that's why I tend to feel that the African American community or culture or whatever is the moral, like the group to look at, for example, because if there were any group that had a right to hate another group,
absolutely,
in this country, let alone the rest of the world, but at least in this country,
absolutely,
this is a group of people who deserve to be able to just say, look, man, you got to prove to me why I shouldn't hate you, because like documents, like pictures, evidence, history, show me why I should suddenly just give you guys a chance and say we're all equal. But you don't hear that, really. No matter, like, very, very, like, I don't think I've ever heard that. And white people try to get sensitive and say, like, oh, they'll act like the Black Panthers or something, like, or Black Power, or these things were anti-white, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Black
it's like,
Lives Matter.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, to this day, like this woman, Adatiana Jefferson, who was literally killed within 4 seconds of being asked out of nowhere from a stranger in the darkness outside of her house to, like, do something. They didn't even say this is the police. Somebody just, like, put your hands up, bow, 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 or something like that, and she's dead. Yeah. And this happens today. You know what I mean? So it's just like, I don't know. For me, I just say the fortitude and moral, like, strength to be a community who continues to endure shit like that and still lends so much to the rest of the world and to this country and still says we can do this together. It's like, like, that's leadership. You know what I mean? Like, it's just...
And I mean, yes, and I don't want to shortchange any community, because I think the Native American community has shown elements of that in at times.
Oh, well, that's true. I don't want to undermine any other.
Yeah, like, but I couldn't agree with you more, and I think that the contribution to this country's culture and standing in this world is, I mean, as far as rock and roll and this being the American age, let's thank Black Americans. Like,
we would have no culture.
Like everything.
American influence. Like, we would have absolutely no culture.
We would have, like, fucking disgusting food, horrible music, ugly clothes, terrible dances. Like, oh my God.
Can I just point to the like, one thing that I thought about when you were talking about this earlier, Rob, is in the same experience, right? When I was in high school, especially in Baton Rouge, I played basketball. It was my whole life, right? I was at the camp. My dad's running a boys' home, and there's, all that stuff going on. Then I go to school and I play basketball. It's my whole world. And there's a bunch of white guys on the team, but it's mostly black guys, right? And some of my buddies who I'd play with outside of school or on the playground or whatever, we go to their neighborhood, and I'm the white guy and around, right? And so, to be fair, like, and it's not, I mean, there were definitely racist people around me, black and white, racist against each other. But most of my friends weren't, right? There were systemic implications. There were touch points. There were nuances. But we weren't racist with each other, right? That's not what was happening. We were teenagers who were getting along and figuring it out. Yeah. But when I went to my buddy Devin's neighborhood, I knew that his uncle did not like me being there.
Right.
And he knew when he came over to the camp, like, there were some of the people at the camp that didn't dig him.
Yeah.
Like, and it wasn't me. Like, but there's this systemic thing that I think systemic gets treated as like a governmental thing.
Yeah.
And generational gets treated as like, it's fixed because we're all younger now.
Yeah.
I don't think generational is the right word, and I think systemic should be applied to communities, tribes, because systems are supported by tribes, and tribes are fucking racist. A lot of people are racist too, but tribes can create such a bubble.
So there's actually a PBS.
I'm not blaming everybody. White people have been very bad at this, especially. I'm saying like that culture is not the government.
Yeah.
It's a system of people.
Well, there's a really interesting. I think Steven Spielberg is behind it. I think it's called Why We Hate, and it's a series on PBS, if I'm not mistaken. And I watched the first episode or something of it. I've been sick the last week, so I was like kind of like on that NyQuil, like kind of in and out of it vibe. But it was our anthropologists,
People who
scientists.
study humans.
Yeah, but they were studying apes, so I'm not sure. But the point was the bonobo versus the chimpanzee, and that basically the river separating them around the area of the DRC, it's just vast because chimpanzees are a patriarchal group where they, like if the alpha male comes in, he'll kill all the babies.
Primatologist.
Primatologist. All right, thank you. Whereas the bonobos are matriarchal and are archaeal, and they're like way cooler, right? And it was saying like, where do we get this from, and where does this like ability, so if you think about it, like even going to the level of great apes, like some of them are doing those ugly, terrible behaviors too, eating alive one another, killing babies, this kind of stuff. So it's not as if it's uniquely human. And so, using the term tribal in that context, I definitely hear what you mean, because if you think about it, like a tribe of chimpanzees versus another one is going to do some of the dirtiest, most terrible things to the other, and they could look from our perspective exactly the same. There's not even it's maybe a scent or a territorial nuance that allows them to even know what's different about one another, right? Like, so from a distance you can't even tell, like someone who's not in the game goes, those just look like a bunch of animals that are the same hurting each other.
It's like we've used this, I know we've talked about this a couple of times on the endless history of the Flawedcast, this idea of like you see a shadow in the bushes, it might be a lion, you go find out if it's a lion or you run for your life, right? If you see a shadow in the bushes and it looks like Jessica Rabbit, it's like whatever the equivalent is for your species and your gender, the most attractive thing, that it might be something fantastic, right? You're definitely checking it out, right? And most of the time you're checking it out. There's something about that that's like, with this like sort of tribal racist instinct that strikes me as like kind of both of those things at the same time. It's like there's this fear-based reaction to what if this is terrible, what if these other people want me dead, what if and then there's this other like, what if there's an opportunity?
Okay, I hear what you're saying.
Like, it's just like both kind of like, so it's not all bad. I'm not like trying to place some like human negative on it all, but I think there's something still so fundamentally genetic.
Yeah, but
I'm not excusing it.
No,
it's horrible,
I shouldn't call it beauty. But here's the crux of it, is that people who instinctively or intellectually or just somehow are familiar with this know how to manipulate it. And I think that's what it really comes down to, is you say it's inherent in people that if you say the right things, right? Like for example, me hearing about someone who did this lynching stuff, like if you were to say, this is the story of Ken so-and-so, he grew up in this area and he lynched 6 different human beings and did these things, these horrific things that we've talked about, the part of my soul that hates is activated, right? I go, oh my God, how could someone be so cruel, evil, disgusting? We can't afford to have people like that in society. And like I said, I'm not for the death penalty. I'm not for any of that stuff. So at this particular point in my life, I don't say, well, let's just go round them up and kill them. But if I wasn't, and I'm not saying I'm like evolved in that way, but I'm just saying if that wasn't my mindset, you could probably manipulate me to go, well, we got to get them, right? Because they're so disgusting. And as soon as those are the stakes, as soon as hate versus hate is in the equation in that way, then all of a sudden it's like all bets are off, right? And I think that's kind of what like those sick fuckers who know how to manipulate our instincts work. Like Trump, you know, oh, the Muslims are in the caravan. Here they come. The ISIS like the same guy who can release, who can condone a country invading and murdering prisons and letting out ISIS prisoners, and the guy who said Obama founded ISIS can still scare you or scare certain people into believing that the poor like immigrants coming from like Guatemala or El Salvador are actually Islamic Middle Eastern terrorists. Like you know what I mean? It just is a testament to the manipulators, you know?
No, it's well, look, and I think we touched on this a little bit the other day, talking about what we kind of hoped in the aspiration of futurism you'd get out of the new global world and our intercommunication with each other. But we seem to be entering another new era of enhanced tribalism, enhanced capacity for hate, enhanced, you know, we're finding the other around every corner whenever we want, just as easily as we were before. And it is a genetic programming and a psychology that is, and interestingly, gender oriented, a lot of our outlook on it in our society, like the masculinity of war, etc. And it reminded me of a rap that I was working on practicing recently, and it has one little part in it that I think speaks to this. And it's the great quest of modern man is overstanding our father's hands in the name of our mother's biology. Reclaim the reins from Ptolemy and break down the fake psychology. But that the idea of
sounds like some Razcast shit.
Thanks, buddy. I got the whole rap for you on deck if you guys want to hear it. It's up to you though. But
we'll let the debate.
I'm on mute, but my vote is yes. I want to hear it.
All right.
You have it written there. Just go for it.
No, I got it. I got it plugged in.
I think. That sounds like a real MC.
Yeah. The hero's journey finds most unworthy, like Nero burning Rome's from coming home early. But the epic's all we got. Fuck the book. We're all people of the story, transcending legend through allegory. Still spinning myths in the laboratory. Tell it, bro. The Poe, vicious like Maury. Rich proboscis slicking up the last bits of his story. Hurt and hope, a heritage of gunsmoke and glory. God for an apology. This is my astrology. The great quest of modern man is overstanding our father's hands in the name of our mother's biology. Reclaim the reins from Ptolemy and break down this fake psychology that's infiltrated our awareness. A poem 7 billion chapters long that no one wants to inherit. No merit, just a quagmire. You often hear it retold by the campfire as the embers turn into sapphires.
Nice. Sorry, I like that. I like that.
Are we 100 episodes into the Flawedcast and we finally got a verse from?
I feel like I've had verses in the past.
No, you had freestyle verses, but we haven't had prepared.
Well, the intro
contextual
song
verses
that had to have been rehearsed, but
clearly
that one it does remind me of Razcast. You know, like,
thanks, bud.
And I don't know if you've listened to his new album, but it's good.
Yeah, it is really good.
He has a song called White Power where they sampled the people in that Charlottesville thing.
The Jews will not replace us.
Yeah, Jews will not replace us. And they were going, White Power. And the producer looped the White Power like chant and built a beat over it. And then Razcast comes in.
I can hear it. It's great. I haven't heard it yet, but I can hear the chant.
Yeah, it's fucking, I was like,
that. The Jews will not replace us.
But it was
great.
like, yeah,
it's great.
The way they did it was...
Yeah, no,
that's such an obnoxious like meme for the history of America to me. Like that's one that makes me.
Well, yeah.
That's one that particularly makes my skin crawl. You know, there's so many parts of like American racist history that are so easy for me to detach from.
Yeah.
You know, that are so easy to go look at those fucking just insane fucking maniac people. They're nuts. I have no association with that whatsoever. Or like Southern roots, super conservative, blah 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 bubble. I can like isolate that stuff. That bunch of white dudes in polo shirts holding tiki torches and saying Jews will not replace us. There's something about that just turns my stomach. It's just a different kind of thing, man, where I'm just like, wait a second, guys. It's not just that you're turning, like, whatever. It's not about the target of your hatred. It's like, are you that fucking pathetic? Are you that fucking insecure? Like, for one thing, I'll be honest. I understand why a lot of Southern white young men are angry generally at the black culture. Because they're fucking terrified, and rightfully so, because your grandfathers enslaved their grandfathers. This is legit. This is serious. You should be afraid. You got some serious shit going on that you got to pay for. You know what I mean?
Okay. All right.
Like, there's a real... I'm not justifying the racism.
Yeah.
You got a real war on your hands that you fucking started.
Yeah. Okay.
Marching through Charlotte, North Carolina...
Yeah, with that chain.
Marching through Virginia?
Yeah.
With tiki torches about the Jews?
Yeah. Like, is that a large membership in that community? Like, really?
What?
And even so...
Like, you may as well just plant a flag and say, we hate literally everyone but us.
Yeah.
Like, that is the most obnoxious, myopic, silly, just eliminate these humans, please. We don't need this thinking in the gene pool of humanity. It was the most glaring, like, holy shit, I wish I wasn't a white man kind of moment. Like,
the best part about that is that how many people do you think that were in that group attend an evangelical church?
I mean, probably most, but I mean, like, for what it's worth, I'm defensive of that because I know a lot of evangelicals who don't support any of it.
Yeah. No, I get that. I'm just asking of that crowd. Sure. Probably a lot of them are attendees for local evangelical churches. Not to say that those pastors or preachers are guilty in particular in this sense.
Right.
But simply that they identify with that line of theology.
Yes.
Which actually speaks to the holiness and sanctity of Israel and the Holy Land and the rebuilding of the temple and all of that being done with Jewish people actually controlling the Jerusalem. Like, what on earth are you talking about? Right. Like, people have no conception of the ins and outs of their own tripping on their own ideas. Like, and then to be hateful about something that you're despicably ignorant about as well.
Exactly. The fact that you're willing to go to war for something that you don't understand.
Yeah.
The fact that you're willing to put your life and the people you love's life on the line for something you don't understand.
Yeah,
that's what was happening.
And I think you just drew the analogy speaking to the situation for poor whites in the South, aware that black people potentially have it out for them, in the sense that
and vice versa. It happens,
that beef is so qualified, as you also alluded to. Like, great, yeah, like I get that.
I get
it. Yes, let's all be better humans, but I don't really have an answer for that quandary. Like,
well, let's make it simple. Let's make it really simple. One of my best friends in high school, he's a year older than me. His name is Devin. He's about 5 inches shorter than me. He can dunk from basically the free throw line. He was a freak of nature in basketball. Unbelievable athlete. Super smart, charismatic, good-looking dude. You name it, the dude's got it, right? The darkest black skin you've ever seen in your life. The dude's a fucking ghost at night. You could see his teeth and nothing else, right? Love Devin. He was like my mentor when I went to this new school. Busted my ass all the time. Amazing. He told me, he's a year ahead of me. I asked him why he didn't go to LSU when he graduated. And it was my senior year, and I'm like, Mr. Hotshot, and like my best chance is go to some like Division II or III school and sit the bench. You know what I mean? And I was pretty good for a white boy, right? Devin would dunk on me with his fucking eyes closed, right? And he's like a foot shorter than me. And I'm like, why didn't you go to LSU, dog? Like, what are you doing? Like, are you trying out anywhere? Like, what's going on? And he was like, do you realize what it takes for you to get into LSU versus me? Yeah. Do you understand do you understand the threshold of people who are black and trying to get on the LSU basketball team versus the people who are white and even fucking close to being eligible to playing on the LSU basketball team? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, you are in a fucking pond, dude, and I am in the Atlantic Ocean without a fucking rowboat. Like, what are you talking about right now? He just, like, put it so clear to me, like, you are not on the same planet as me right now. I am not good enough in every way. I have to be good enough in every way plus one to do anything.
I get that. Yeah, I get that.
Right? And so there was, like, that kind of moment for me where, like, at a certain point, like, in the South, you just don't fight, you don't get it across in your head, you know? Like, it's just so many things that are just obvious, like that the guy at the gas station is going to prefer you because you're not black, and that, like, it's just all of the fucking time, and it's so overt that you just ignore it after a while.
Right.
And if you're black in the South, it's so overt that you just think every fucking white piece of shit out there is like this.
Yeah.
Like, well, that's the part that is so distinct for me.
I don't know what's in the head of anyone but me, but I know, studying a little bit about the history of Martin Luther King, the Poor People's Campaign, you know, and the fact that he was killed, you know, he was being aggressively pursued by J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI for a decade, you know, but it wasn't until the late 60s when he started trying to unite what he referred to as American Indians or Native Americans, black people, Hispanic people, or whatever, you know, every different stripe. And he said Appalachian whites, right? Mm-hmm. And at that point, when he was trying to bring those groups together, you know, and I'm not saying that's the only reason or that's it, but I'm just saying if they wanted to take him out, it seems they had a lot of opportunities for a while. But when he became a true threat was when he was trying to unite the poor people all over the country, right? So it's just interesting. But you know, I think the trap in all of that is the ability or the tendency to forget those horrors that were visited upon, you know, certain races exclusively, because I'm sure there were Appalachian whites who may have been, you know, hanged or different things happened to them, right? But I tend to assume no matter how bad their day-to-day existence was, it wasn't the same or as bad as people of color. You know what I mean? But nonetheless, it's still interesting. You know, it's still fascinating to think that it wasn't until then that King was assassinated, and then it's like James Earl Ray, one shot from, you know, over here, and he was on the run for like a month, and they found him in London or something. You know what I mean? By the time they apprehended the fucker, like, I don't know. It just doesn't add up, you know. And just a quick side note, it's interesting because I was watching some stuff because I've been sick, like I said, so I've been watching some documentaries and that kind of stuff, and I watched something about Robert Kennedy, you know, Bobby, and it's like this guy, he may have been on the right track at the end, but you know, he was not a friend of true civil rights at the beginning. You know what I mean? Interesting. They allowed he you know, he was the attorney general, and he allowed J. Edgar Hoover to fucking wiretap and do all this different shit to Martin Luther King, right? Like that took his okay. You know, so I'm not saying that makes him eternally bad. Right.
Yeah.
But it is also just worthy of note. You know what I mean? That like even some of the heroes of the civil rights movement, like which I believe he's considered to be on some level. You know, like certainly not on like the top level, but he's in the pantheon or like one of the people. But he too wasn't. You know, he didn't start there. And so it's interesting because what got him killed, right? Like what? So because the thing he was assassinated, so maybe he did figure it out, or you know, but now what you got to say is here we are, and you got the hate is apparent, but then you got people like Bernie Sanders, man. I mean, quite honestly, like I've been feeling Warren for the last several months, but in the last couple weeks, I've started really thinking a lot about Bernie.
He's the only candidate that actually will get all of the youth excited and out there and stoked. Like he is the only one that's actually going to bring everybody to the party. Right. I think, you know, they keep
but at
showing.
the same time, isn't a risk to him. You know what I mean? Because
I just want to know if you guys are you guys ready to link your cart to the Bernie Yang gang?
Wait, Bernie Yang isn't the same thing.
Bernie Yang is happening, guys.
No.
Bernie Yang is happening.
No, Yang.
It's happening.
Sorry. Yang is a flash in the pan.
It's happening.
Yang is an anomaly and an interesting guy. Yang, you know what?
You don't like Yang. Look at you.
I don't dislike him.
He's no Nikki Haley. I'll give you that.
Listen, math. Get the fuck out of here. Math.
You didn't think that was cute?
It was cute, but it's bullshit. It's like, it's no more math than Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders comes out here and says, yeah, if we're going to do Medicare for all, it'll probably increase what you pay in taxes if you were in the middle class, but it will decrease what you pay in insurance premiums, deductibles, co-pays, etc. Right? He comes out here with math, and he just calls it fucking common sense. Andrew Yang comes out here with gimmicks. I'm going to give fucking $1,000 to 10 people. Please tune into my website. And he's math. I don't know. I'm sorry. I like him. I like Yang, and I'm glad he's in the race. And I hope and I think he's a good guy. And I think if he were to win, he'd be better than. I'd rather him than Amy Klobuchar. I'd rather him than Joe Biden. But the love that he's getting for math and for acting like, oh, it's just common sense. Oh. It's like, no, it's that, like, you're appealing to a simplistic way of looking at things and you're ignoring a lot of complexities. Meanwhile, someone like Bernie is just straight up putting it all right out there in
I love the way that Bernie comes after that, no question. But I don't want to like hate on Yang for not having exactly the same approach as Bernie, and in not only in the debate but in subsequent interviews, like he's got a lot of really detailed plan-oriented structuring around how he wants the UBI to work, the particulars of how that program, like we covered actually in previous Flawedcast.
I think it was before we went.
It was before we went. You know,
TV stars.
Face up. But he also recently said that he would like to have thorium salt reactors built and have really clean nuclear energy as a hold-in as we transition to a more renewable base. And, you know, as just a supplemental potential as we move into a more futuristic energy mode. And I'm like, yes, please, let's talk about those details and those scientific endeavors that there's some nerdy branches of our country know we could have done and should have done from the get-go instead of doing uranium-based reactors like we do now and have, because we build weapons with that shit. So, yes, let's use thorium, and only a smidgen of uranium gets used at all, and it's like it has a half-life that's better, it recycles cleaner into the environment, all that shit. And there's like almost zero chance of any sort of meltdown or catastrophe happening. Like the shit just stabilizes naturally. So anyways, it's like for the details oriented shit, I feel like he's got his hands in a lot of different idea pots that all seem like he's filtering some of the smart shit out and speaking to like futuristic minded nerds, which I appreciate that.
Can I point out?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rob.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, because I don't dislike Andrew Yang. I like him. I bet you I'd be friends with him.
Yeah.
And I think I could totally get along with him, and I appreciate what he's doing on a lot of levels. And when they asked him the question about who was his random friend, as we talked about last week, he said, "Oh, it was a truck driver, it was a Trump supporter," and that's cool. But there's just a part of me that feels like what he's appealing to when he talks about automation and various things is a very calculated group of people. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this group of people. Those people are smart to think, yeah, we're getting automated out of the picture. But it's like it's a niche concern in my mind. Like it's not a small niche, but it's like it doesn't necessarily speak to everyone. It speaks to more like a certain kind of working class person who fears that their ability to stay afloat by continuing to just work 9 to 5 is at risk, right? Yeah. And he's saying, yeah, you're right to be worried about that. And he's right on a lot of levels. But like, I don't think it's just AI and automation that are problems right now. Those are huge considerations. Climate change is also probably a much bigger concern than AI or automation. You know what I'm saying? Like so there are some other things.
Nuclear proliferation. There's a lot of issues that are global threats that are far beyond just the job threats of automation in America.
But I like him. I'm not trying to diss Yang. I'm just saying I don't see him as like, he and Bernie are like somehow equivalent or like a match made in heaven. I think he's a very, very junior conceptual partner. And
I don't think Bernie would be eager to tie
for
his
what
ship
it's for what it's worth.
Port.
I would tend to assume so as well.
Including that last statement, I agree 100% with everything that was just said about Bernie and Andrew Yang.
Yeah, okay.
That being said, I think Andrew Yang is not only a first-time presidential candidate, he has an entire staff of first-timers, including his marketing team, who are helping him brand his messages into these
They're doing a really good job on a lot of levels.
But they're mostly first-timers.
Sure.
I'm gonna place the bet that the huge majority of Andrew Yang's campaign team, the huge majority, way beyond 80%, is the first time they've ever been on a presidential campaign.
I would probably assume you're right.
I'm going to bet the exact opposite by a margin is true for Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren.
For sure.
That the huge majority of their teams have been on multiple presidential campaigns before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? I'm also going to state for the Flawedcast Nation record that I have not and refuse to go back and watch a single fucking second of any of the
except for the debate where you guys made it a music video.
Yes, and I literally only watched the clips that I edited for that debate and did not give a single fuck about what was said. I am not watching those debates because that is a game show that has nothing to do with governance. It has absolutely nothing to do with that is a marketing campaign game show that is meant to do.
It has
extreme. Nothing to do with being in a room and signing a document, with negotiating with foreign leaders. It has nothing to do with using political leverage to get a bill signed.
I think nothing to do seems like a stretch.
With marketing. I absolutely, full-heartedly believe that this campaign, along with many of the others in my lifetime, have literally zero implications on the governance of the actual person who wins.
Check it out, though. This is how most of the party rhetoric is disseminated to the population, and they respond. So in many ways, it's a marketing research campaign.
Absolutely.
Right, and each party can use it to refine what their message is, their platform is going to be come time for the convention. And it's this interesting feely way that a campaign cycle works with the public, and why the polling is so every other day there's a brand new poll. Like, really, we're quite a ways away from that mattering that much.
Right.
Why is so much resource and energy being thrown at this constant mathematical adjustment of, give or take 5%? Well, then who the fuck cares? Because the difference is only 1% between everybody. So why give or take 5? Come on. Sure. You know, like, I don't know. So you're right that it's marketing, but you're wrong in regards to its effect on governance, in the sense that not only can it help the party build particulars to the platform, but many candidates in other realms who are not even presidential candidates will be hearkening to what comes out of that cycle. They'll figure out. I can
appreciate. Yes. The campaigning and the slogans and the marketing around the campaign, the message that wins the audience, all of that stuff affects the system of governance.
Yes.
In some way, it pushes the wave in some direction. Fine.
No question about it.
I don't believe that there is a one-to-one relationship between the candidate and the governor, the individual, making the decisions. In my lifetime, I have not seen good examples, including in my lifetime, my personal opinion, the best example I have ever seen, which is Barack Obama. I have literally never, including Barack Obama, ever seen anyone actually have integrity with their campaign promises. In any party, anywhere, you give them enough time, and they will prove themselves that was campaigning and this is governance. That they are different.
Okay,
they prove that over.
Okay, but I know, but I think you're making a point that is about the system, and you're assigning it to these candidates.
No. I'm trying to bring it back to a circle about Andrew Yang and Bernie Sanders for a very specific reason. If you put Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren on the same ticket, and even if more than half America voted for that, if something happens to Bernie Sanders, do you honestly believe that everybody in America now is super excited and rallied around Elizabeth Warren? I love the message of
Elizabeth probably than it would be Pence.
I agree that it's not Pence, but nobody voted for Pence. People voted against Hillary. They didn't vote for Trump. They voted against Hillary. Pence I don't know.
That's not. I think some people.
Is not a hard thing to prove, Rob. We've talked about this a lot.
No, we haven't talked about that. Hold on.
Absolutely.
Time out.
The lesser of evils.
You're saying nobody. You're saying nobody voted for Trump, and that's not true.
I'm not saying nobody.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying when you look at the numbers, people weren't trying to get Trump into office. They were scrambling. The Republican base was scrambling to not have Hillary Clinton in office.
No, I disagree.
How do you disagree? The huge majority,
no.
Against Hillary Clinton.
Let me put it this way: anybody who's ever attended a Trump rally was there to get Trump in office, not to not get Hillary in office.
I totally disagree with that.
Period.
Absolutely.
You cannot wear the red hat of hate.
You cannot tell me that there was one of those Trump rallies, Rob, that did not include lock her up.
There were that became the slogan. They said it. Just like they said, send her back about people who were born in this country.
Hillary. It was not about him being president. His campaign was Hillary Clinton cannot be president.
He absolutely made huge progress in his own movement on that front. I don't deny that. But I do disagree with the idea that he doesn't have adamant, righteous, cult-like worshipers of him. Because he's got a huge...
I agree with you. However, I believe that could not be possible without Hillary Clinton.
Okay, no. Because Hillary's gone. And right now...
She's not. She's not, because every one of those Trump supporters today will tell you about her emails.
You could talk about the boogeyman to those fucking dumb fucks. It doesn't matter.
They're still obsessed with it, and that's why they voted for it.
But they're fucking idiots who love Trump. They love whatever he says he hates. Yeah, that's just what
they also really love his racism. They love the nonchalance of his sexism. They love the idea that they can try to act like it's the 50s again in some ways.
You cannot ignore that love for that sick, puckering asshole, because there is tremendous about the same people who say, You're not giving him a chance. People are just out to get him. All this different shit. That doesn't come from my I hate Hillary place. That comes from my I love Trump place.
Yeah, and I think Mishak, you're right in so many ways that
I agree too.
There was probably a huge portion of Trump's votes that came from people who just
maybe even
didn't want Hillary. No, enough to change the election, likely, right? So no, I'm not going to debate that. I think that what Rob said as well, though, the way that the Trump mechanism like latched onto that, and then the way it now sits, where he still gets this 37% like loyalist, like I'll tattoo his fucking name on my forehead type of folk that would burn for the guy, take a bullet for him, etc. He has that, and she's been really quiet. So sure, they can talk about her emails and they'll bring up those straw men shit, but now they've become enamored with his continuous hatred. They become enamored with the new sense of them having their own identity within America that's carved out and a little bit their own. And now, oh yeah, people don't like me. Oh, people like that. People like to kind of be hated on, and like,
I totally hear that.
You know,
but
they're
I think
being
that's
marginalized.
Still a minority.
And they're the
I
victims.
still would argue that that's a minority. And here's
it
why.
might be the minority.
Here's
what
I mean.
Big group of people.
Fine, but I think there are still single-party voters that make up the majority of the conservative base, right? And I say that very distinctly. I think the majority of the conservative base is literally only voting on one issue, and that issue is abortion.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I would contest that most Trump voters were pro-life voters.
You're probably right.
That's my kind of starting point. My foundational point of this argument is that most Trump voters were not voting for Trump. They were voting against abortion.
All right.
I think you're giving people
now
a lot of moral credence, though. Like,
I'm using my own personal experience, right? But I'm also using some process here, because now when you take it to the current election, okay, when you take it to the current situation, and you put yourself in the mindset of a pro-life voter, a single issue voter, right? I am only voting for candidates who are pro-life. From there, I'll pick my favorite.
I do have to say, think about how fucking twisted and stupid you have to be for that to be your only fucking concern in the world. Unborn babies. You don't care if you get locked up. You don't care if you rip a baby out of a parent's hands and put them in a jail cell, as long as they're just born.
Right. However, the argument that I'm making is that the majority of conservative Americans feel that way, regardless of how we think about the logic.
I also
that's
think
why they're voting. So let's finish a final point here. The current election does not have someone scarier than Hillary Clinton to that person.
But why? Because these are all pro-choice Democrats, probably much more progressive than Hillary.
Not like the stories that they have been told since 1992, when Bill Clinton became president of the United States and Hillary became first Satan.
Yeah, sure.
And she stayed first Satan since 1992.
I mean, I would agree that
more than half of our
Bernie
lives,
Sanders hasn't
American
been the focus of that hatred
Republican
since then. Elizabeth Warren has been. That's me agreeing with you. Like I'll grant that, but I'm not necessarily in a position.
I don't think people are voting for Trump. Is my point.
I hear you. I don't necessarily.
I disagree with how that movement has evolved now. To begin with, I think you could get away with that statement. But where he is now, where the Trump movement is now in America, I don't think that flies anymore. Because, look, Larry from Meckelsburg, who loves the Steelers and is Harley, and fucking Trump. He loves Trump.
Got the T-shirt.
Everybody at work, Trump. is arguing about it, and he's flaunting that racism in the face of his coworkers who are from different backgrounds. He doesn't give a fuck. Now he's defined. Larry has a couple friends who were part of the local also Trump troop, Now we got real identity with each other. Oh yeah, we're the white, poor, fighting workers, of our community who always get handed the short stick. And look at the way this fucking liberal media's got. It's such an easy sell. and those people found this community now. So it's like taking people out of their AA meetings, like, and forcing them to stop drinking the fake Kool-Aid and drink some goddamn Jameson. Like,
wow,
there's weird
like
cult-like shit that these people are now it's a new addiction for conservatives, and I don't think it's particularly tied to Roe v. Wade or abortion. I think Larry's fucking daughter had an abortion. He didn't think twice about it. Mm-hmm. I think that I don't think I'm going to give these people that much type of high ground as far as the way they think their own ethics are. I think
those people are absolutely real, and I don't disagree at all with that personification of a voter. I think where we're disagreeing is where the line gets drawn for how many of them represent the base who got Trump elected, and how many of the base who got Trump elected are represented by people who literally just plugged their ears about Donald Trump and said, Republican, pro-life, check.
Yeah.
Literally
the only. You would have to plug your ears. You would have to plug your ears and close your eyes.
I am willing to bet that 51 versus 49, I am willing to bet that at least 51 was on the plug your ears, pro-life.
Well, maybe you're right. But what about this? Because it reminds me of the concept.
I'm with you on all the other points for what it's worth. That's all the only point I'm making. It's just from my experience, I think there's enough of that force that will turn off all of their other moral judgments about Donald Trump, and that will paint Hillary Clinton as the Antichrist, and anything that's connected to her as the Antichrist, and that they would justify it as human life in the womb is the only reason for any of this. And as absurd as it sounds, I believe that that's more than half of that.
Well, maybe you're right. You know, I don't know, but I do think it takes a lot of intellectual elasticity to be so pro-life that you support unborn babies, yet don't give a fuck about them the second they're born. But I know that that's a big portion of the country. But it reminds me, and I don't know if this is an applicable tangent or not, but it's like a couple years ago, I feel like I finally understood the concept of homophobia. It took me like 35 years to truly get it, because I thought there were anti-gay, you know, like people who hated homosexuals, but I didn't understand the concept of homophobia. In fact, maybe somewhere in my brain I thought it was kind of silly, because just because I hate something doesn't mean I'm afraid of it. But then I realized that if you believe it's a choice to be gay, then you believe you're currently not making that choice, and the person who is making that choice is lesser than you. And so you're actually afraid of the concept, because the truth is you might be gay. Yeah, exactly. And you're choosing not to be gay, and it's hard. Yeah. It's difficult. Yeah. You're and actively working against...
most homophobic guys get caught with crystal meth. But
I somehow, that was over my head for most of my life, and then suddenly it clicked in my head that like, okay, you actually are afraid of it because you could easily be it if you just stopped hating it, right?
You know what?
And that was something I didn't get. So the reason I bring it up is I'm just wondering, when we talk about this abortion and everything else, is there libraphobia to an extent where you say, God, I could actually just love everyone. I could actually just be, you know, a compassionate, rational thinker. But if I do that, then all of a sudden, all this stuff I've said, I have to, like, go back on. I have to say I was wrong. I have to rethink so many things. I have to, like, look at that person that I called a racial slur or a whatever slur, or that person that I bullied, and actually think, shit, I was wrong. You know, that's hard. And that's something you could be afraid of. So is that same, and the reason I'm bringing it up is I'm just wondering, in a sense, Mishak, is that same vein of I hate Hillary, so I'm voting for Trump, is that a decent phobia? Is that decency phobia? You know what I'm saying? Like afraid of being decent, because
the way you just
adultophobia
now. What's that?
Being scared of being an adult.
Adultophobia.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Maturophobia.
Yeah. Maturophobia. I love that. When I was in high school, one of the guys at the boys' home that I grew up in made a comment about homophobia that shifted my thinking about that topic exactly the way you just described it, Rob. But it was just in this weird, like, instant moment where he described it, and it was just a quote that I will never forget as long as I live. He said, "You ever hear anybody apologize for having arachnophobia? It's not their fucking fault they're afraid of spiders. I don't want to be gay, and I'm cool with that."
Huh.
Which is like what I'm saying.
I
Right?
don't
Like,
want to be
I'm literally, and the only thing keeping me from being gay.
Legit, this dude was like 15 years old, and it blew my mind. I just went, boom! Holy shit! Now I get it.
No, that's it. Yeah.
Right? Now I totally get it. You just made your point. Thank you for your time. I totally understand now. Get it. Yes, and it's exactly what you're describing, Rob.
We got an angry dog over here.
I'm terrified of the nuance of sexuality. It scares the shit out of me.
It's weird to think because
on that.
I haven't been. I've never been like against homosexuality in my life.
Sure.
But I went with the crowd, said things people said, ignored other things and all this. But what I never until that moment understood was the idea that
Cowboy Dave, come on, dog.
Jeez,
Dave wants to be on the podcast.
Dog one.
But I
we haven't heard from you in a while.
I never realized that if you believe it's a choice,
right, and
you're actively not making the choice, how slippery of a slope you're standing on, right? It's like
a conversation I had with a pastor one time and a couple of other assistant youth pastors who were all married, and one of these youth pastors who was in an abnormal moment deciding to like kind of buck the system. We were talking about homosexuality, and I was like 16, 17. I was like an intern for this, it was like 10 or 12 other guys who were all like in the ministry trying to work their way up and blah, blah, blah. And all these guys talking, and they're talking about homosexuality. And one guy was talking about how like, so, at a certain point you have to kind of choose your path. Like, you have to kind of build some routines and like have a reputation and have integrity and like choose who you are and like make a decision and stick with it. And, this thing, right? And he was talking in the context of sexuality, right? Now, at that point in my life, I'd been in the ministry for long enough, and like I wasn't in the quote unquote world. I wasn't in the secular world. I didn't go to public school. I didn't have any kind of normal statistics for how humans interact, right? I was around ministry people and people who came into the ministry because they were in trouble. Like that was all my whole world. And so like the human relationships, right, where like you got married at like 19 because you met at 12 and God told you were meant to be together. Or you like had like 47 crazy, bizarre sexual affairs with anything and everything until you eventually got caught. Right? There was like no in between. There was like no like natural like relationship stuff. So there's like a certain point where all these guys are talking about like their sexuality and their like, their relationships and all this stuff where it just kind of clicked with me like, oh, you guys are literally making shit up because you don't have any idea of like what's acceptable to your tribe. You don't know if it's like acceptable to your tribe to rape your wife. You don't know if it's okay. You don't know if it's acceptable to your tribe if your wife wants to have another man and you're okay with it. You don't know if that's acceptable. You have no idea if it's acceptable to your tribe if your wife is okay with you having a whole bunch of other women. You have there's all these other things that you have no idea really what's acceptable to your tribe. The only thing you know for sure is that what's acceptable to your tribe is that you are a badass and you tell your bitch what to do. Right? There's just like this instant like, you know what? If nothing else, I'm a warrior. Yeah. And like this kind of persona like dictates. And then you enter homosexuality into that world.
Right.
That is like, just like you just said, Rob, it's like, it's just like this little key you turn in the background like, wait, what if you don't know who the fuck you are?
Well,
Right.
and I think there's something so interesting about the way that story played out too, because even saying, "Oh, you've got to choose which pathway to go down,"
Yeah.
thinking about the way that the clergy works in a lot of church scenarios.
Right.
One pathway can involve like stooping the wives of your congregation and their teenage boys. And the other pathway would be, getting involved in a straight monogamous relationship, man and woman, as approved by this church.
Or just celibacy.
You know what I mean? Like, or being a celibate. But, like, so, which pathway to choose? Or,
But
God
forbid that you're a dude that watches porn every once in a while and never gets anyone pregnant.
The idea that the choice set is behind the determinant of your orientation and gender desires is so easy for a person to see. You just have that programming in you. Who knows where it came from? That's what you want. Like, good, go get it. Great, be happy. Like, is that not an easier way to see your fellow humans than, you were all born with this potential to choose sin, and you decided to go down that unnatural path that's just unnatural. Like, those terminologies are so awkward, and so they put the homosexuality of all of its myriad formats, like, goes so far back into our history and is so part of all of our civilizations and societies that always have been. We've had royal people who are of many different stripes of sexual orientation. Like, it's just so fucking silly that we're so antiquated with this.
I feel like, in a way, you've pointed to logic behind why becoming righteous about your avoidance of your desires could lead to clergy roles, which is interesting in itself. I don't thought too much about that, but it makes sense that a bunch of people who are claiming their righteousness on their avoidance of their own truth would encourage others to do that, which I just find kind of interesting. But another thing that always struck me was that, like, I didn't feel like I chose to be heterosexual. Like, I found it since I remember being attracted to women. I remember finding it odd. Like, why is it that just seeing her or looking at that woman does something in my brain that makes me excited? Because I think, like, that's so weird. Like, I remember being, like, high school, having a crush on a girl or something, and, like, if you're in class, like, even just, like, seeing, like, her profile or her arm or something, you'd be, like, somehow able in your mind to be like, oh my god, glorious profile, her photo is so hot, or whatever, And I remember thinking to myself, like, how could something as simple as a thigh, that isn't that different between a man and a woman, let alone different women, uniquely attract me, to this individual. So I don't feel like it was a choice to be heterosexual in that way. I didn't say one day I want to like, this or that part of a female, or just a female in general, or the female anatomy. It was just something that awoken or awake. I don't know how to say that, but it brought something up in my brain. It awoke something within my brain that I couldn't necessarily explain or describe. Now, if that was not okay, and if I was supposed to feel really bad about that and say that's wrong, that's evil, that would be a whole different existence for me. You know what I mean? So I just find that, to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a huge spectrum, and growing up is always this time and place where you're figuring out what your sexuality is and learning about yourself and all that shit. And I think a lot of people wonder a little bit about what their orientation is. And I know I did as a young teenager. And I know particularly
based on the peculiarity of it all.
I love telling the story too, because of something my father said to me. I was going away for a month in the summer. And before I went, he's like, you may have, I was 11, going to have my 12th birthday. He's like, you may have sex this summer. I just hope it's not with another little boy. And
That
and
is a unique statement.
I was like, wow, like,
Before
okay,
you turn 12.
yeah, I'm not really planning on that, but thank you for like heads upping your preference point on this. Hope not to disappoint, I guess, you know.
But on the other
And
hand, like it's okay, but you just
yeah,
rather it didn't?
yeah, I
Okay,
hope
this
it's
is
not.
even
Okay,
weirder.
okay, great. Like you're even addressing it. Like, is there a question mark? Like, I'm 11, so what vibe am I giving off? Like, I don't know. Like, you know,
Yeah,
right? So,
that's super funny and interesting and everything.
but but anyway, so there's like this time in your life, and like nonetheless, I still think there's this like grandiose spectrum of human sexuality that
Yeah,
all of us fit into,
of course.
and like, so you know, everybody can get into something of their own, and god damn it, if that's not like more, so like, so if we want this like ideal esteemed set of ethics to sort of overarch our society in terms of like really caring for people who have less and being considerate and compassionate, etc., like let's have our steam off, go to being biologically completely free with all of our sexualities, less than rape or hurting somebody, and be open to exploring that biology, and then narrow down our like human like focus on ethics into these elements that are over here, rather than tamping down like the ethics of how people use their bodies. You can't have oral sex in Utah, or like,
Yeah.
you know, whatever these fucking laws are.
But
Right?
outside
Like,
of Utah,
It's Sunday. There's
all
no
good.
pantsless dancing.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
you know, it's funny because and we should probably wrap up because the dog's gonna start trying to overtake the whole podcast over here.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say that I had this kind of
Fast overtime.
yes, but I thought this morning to myself, and I'm not one to do this, so it's kind of hard for me to even say it. But you know, I'm kind of like, this is what I believe. This is how it is. Fuck you, right? You guys know that. That's how I talk. But
It's all fuck you all the time from Rob.
well, it really is, you know, like if you really think about it. And I'm not necessarily trying to say that I could change that about myself, but I just started entertaining this thought of like, what about the fact that these people that we've just kind of gone over, these people who may have tendencies that are this way but are ashamed of them or don't want to acknowledge them, or these people who don't want to acknowledge that the world could be better if we changed this or that, you know, like whether it's, you know, abortion related or healthcare or any of the progressive mindset things. One of the things that we don't really do a good job of, in my opinion, as progressives, is like kind of explaining that the party that we're envisioning, like, because it's like if society were a big party, right?
Yeah.
The party we're talking about doesn't have all you guys who we disagreed with, like
in your own party,
or in jail, or tortured, or any of those things. We're literally envisioning you guys being at the party and kicking it big and having a good time. Like that's actually just the default of our worldview. Come here, buddy.
I like that. It's a really good way to sell it.
But we don't tend to think of it that way or say it that way, you know. So I just wonder what it would look like if people like me had the whatever trait you would need to do that, to say, look, I hear that you think I'm talking about some utopia or I'm floating on cloud 9 or whatever the fuck you think is wrong with me, but I just want you to know that in this fantasy world that you're so against, you're there having a great time. Even if you're rich, even if you're filthy rich, you're not a slave in this world. You're like still what we believe is. Told you, man. But what
we're not repossessing yachts. We just think, you know, you can downscale a few parts of your life, and you know, you don't need to have $1 billion extra dollars that you don't even share in the market. Like, it's not used by other people. It's hiding in some currency exchange.
Well, it's like when you get to the third act of Idiocracy, and there's only 2 candidates, and it's just going downhill, and suddenly a third candidate is introduced, and it's Rob, and he says, "Hey guys, wouldn't it be cool if we just all took care of each other?"
Yeah, exactly.
Like in the middle of all the fucking nonsense. Like,
Yeah.
hey, stop all the bullshit. Can we just make sure we're all cool?
Yeah.
Right.
Like for the next little while.
But I mean, I guess like just for my own sense of closure on that thought process, if I were the conservative, like the one who's going, no, we can't afford to have healthcare for everyone, and there's, homeless people are bad, and all this different stuff that you got to believe to be a conservative, and everything I have I earned, and anything anyone else doesn't have is their fault because they fucked up. That whole mindset. If you just said, I don't agree with you, but outside of that, all of my solutions involve you still winning. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing that I'm grappling with.
In fact, and you're going to win so much more.
Yeah, exactly. It's
because now
you can be gay now.
You're gonna get sick of
you can be yourself.
Yeah,
so you can be yourself. People won't hate you for being the dickbag you've turned yourself into.
You're gonna
have friends.
You're gonna get sick of winning. You're gonna get so sick of winning. You're gonna be like, oh my God, there's so much winning. Yeah. Literally Donald Trump.
The food, it's gonna taste just as good. We promise.
Well, I hate to say it, but this guy is making my time very limited because
Cowboy Dave.
He's trying to get on the mic as much
as Dave. Can I just point out, Rob, that with your auto blur filter on, whenever you take notes,
I have the auto blur on.
Yeah, you do, and whenever you take notes, it seems so dramatic. It seems like like a turning point in a soap opera. Like when you're writing down, it's like, holy shit, there should be like tears running down a window. There should be like soft music playing. There's the whole thing.
Will be passed.
Totally. It's really dramatic. It's good.
That makes me.
It adds an extra element.
Pleased. Very pleased.
I like it a lot.
Doing this pleases me. I hope that the Flawedcast Nation is also pleased.
I hope you stayed with us, because if you haven't, we hate you.
From the Flawed,
not be a part of the party.
You didn't do like Trump when he's talking to the.
Oh, that was dope. That was dope. So we should probably sign off, but I think there's a small piece of admin afterwards.
Okay. Well then,
so
goodbye.
To the nation.
Tulsi Gabbard, is that what we got to deal with? We got to deal with Tulsi Gabbard, offline.
She wants to be a guest next week, and we got to figure out whether we can do that.
I'm out.
I don't want that to be discussed in front of the nation in case.
Yeah, no. My vote is I'm afraid to Tahiti if that happens.
Okay. Well.
So
in the meantime, this is
goodbye
Cowboy
then.
Dave, and he loves you.
Podcast.
Yeah.
Rock and roll, Flawedcast Nation.